Hello everyone, I'll be talking about Pablo Picasso. Although he lived many of his adult years in France, Picasso was a Spaniard by birth. He's from the town of Malaga in Andalusia, Spain. He was raised Catholic, but in his later life he would declare himself an atheist. He attended the School of Fine Arts in Barcelona when he was 13 years of age. In 1897, Picasso began his studies at Madrid's Real Academia de Bellas Artes de San Fernando, which was Spain's top art academy at the time. He attended only briefly, preferring to roam the art exhibits at the Prado, studying the Rembrandt, El Greco, Francisco Goya, and Diego Velázquez. During his nascent period, he painted portraits, such as his sister's Lola First Communion. As the 19th century ended, elements of symbolism and his own interpretation of modernism began to be apparent in his stylized landscapes. It was a confluence of influences, from Paul Cézanne and Henri Rousseau to archaic and tribal art, that encouraged Picasso to lend his figures more structure and ultimately set him on the path towards Cubism, in which he deconstructed the conventions of perspective that had dominated painting since the Renaissance. Picasso's immersion in Cubism also eventually led him to the invention of collage, in which he abandoned the idea of the picture as a window on objects in the world and began to conceive of it merely as an arrangement of signs that use different, sometimes metaphorical means to refer to those objects. Picasso had an eclectic attitude to style, and although at any one time his work was usually characterized by a single dominant approach, he often moved interchangeably between different styles, sometimes even in the same artwork. Some art movements that he was part of was the Analytic Cubism from 1907 to 1912. The artist worked with the fellow painter George Braque in creating the beginnings of the Cubist movement in art. Their paintings utilize a palette of earth tones. The works depict constructed objects with complex geometric forms. Another movement was synthetic cubism. This era of Picasso's life extended from 1912 to 1919. Picasso's work continued in the cubist vein, but the artist introduced a new art form, collage, into some of his creations. He also incorporated the human form into many cubist paintings, such as The Girl with the Mandolin, 1910, and Ma Jolie, 1911 or 1912. Although several artists he knew left Paris to fight in World War I, Picasso spent the war years in his studio. Lastly, he was also in Neoclassicism and Surrealism. The Picasso art period extending from 1919 to 1929 featured a significant shift in style. In the wake of his first visit to Italy and the conclusion of World War I, the artist's paintings such as the watercolor Peasant Sleeping in 1919 reflected a restoration of order in art, and his neoclassical artworks offer a stark contrast to his Cubist paintings. However, as the French Surrealist movement gained traction in the mid-1920s, Picasso began to reprise his penchant for privatism in such Surrealist-influenced paintings as The Three Dancers in 1925. During the 1930s, Picasso's work, such as his well-known Guernica, a unique depiction of the Spanish Civil War, reflected violence of wartime. The Picasso art period, known as the Blue Period, extended from 1901 to 1904. During this time, the artist painted primarily in shades of blue with occasional touches of accent color. For example, the famous 1903 artwork The Old Guitarist features a guitar in warmer brown tones amid the blue hues. Picasso's blue period works are often perceived as somber due to their subdued tones. The rose period lasted from 1904 through 1906. Shades of pink and rose imbued Picasso's art with warmer, less melancholy air than his blue period paintings. Harlequins, clowns, and circus folk are among the recurrent objects in this artwork. He painted one of his best-selling works during the Rose period, Boy with the Pipe. Elements of privatism in the Rose period paintings reflect experimentation with the Picasso art style. As we can see in several of his paintings, Pablo Picasso has several functions of art. He uses art as a self-expression of his painting of himself, self-portrait, art for commemoration, Guernica, as we can see everyone who suffered through the war, art in worship and ritual, Lola's First Communion, as we can see that her sister is in a Catholic church, and art as commentary, Guernica, as we can see his opinions on wars. Several art critics of the era were downright vicious in their reviews of Picasso's artistic talents, labeling his art as degenerated, odd, and a product of diseased nerves. I feel like without really knowing the meaning of the art made by Picasso, I would feel the same as the critics above, but after carefully looking at it and seeing why he did it, I completely disagree with those statements, and I would like to emphasize that Pablo Picasso is a total legend for me.